Start in 3 minutes.
Yeah, we're gonna have some participants tonight too.
I'm gonna have to recuse myself from another one also, that Tom Lawrence one.
Oh,
Right. So, I guess if, Dan doesn't come, that one won't get resolved either.
Is that the one we spent a couple years going around in circles on?
Yes,
Deck. The deck that wasn't a deck, the deck that was a patio, and then,
this was everything.
yeah,
We went around so much, we dug a hole about 10 feet deep.
it's true.
you know, after the first round on this thing, there was some kind of change, extension, something or other, and I didn't recuse myself again, and it started a whole chain of things. So,
Well, then just recuse yourself from what you need to, and we'll redo what we need to redo. If Dan isn't here, then it is what it is.
hmm. He was my neighbor like 20 years ago.
Oh, we have 563rd street plantings.
Yeah,
The planting.
Tom Hughes is gonna give a quick update on that. That's the Chris Horan development project. It's that sort of multi-unit, 5-unit project.
Oh, okay.
On that corner, or near that corner. He had 2 projects right there. And they want their certificate of compliance, but they're not,
Nope.
the plantings aren't done, so Tom wants to just.
There's Dan. We're all good.
Oh, good.
Yay, awesome.
Hi, Dan. Thanks for showing up.
All right, we needed it. We needed Dan.
Did,
Okay.
You're welcome. Thank you.
all right, it is 6:45. All right, let's bring this meeting to order. This is the May 7th, 2024 Newburyport Conservation Commission meeting taking place on the Zoom platform. This meeting is being recorded. Our first item on the agenda are the April 16th, 2024 meeting minutes. Do we have any questions, changes? More motions?
Motion to approve?
Second,
All right, roll call, Steve Moore,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes,
Carol's not here, Dan Warshaw,
yes.
Bill Mullen,
Yes.
and I vote yes. All right, the first item is going to be 563rd Street plantings. Tom Hughes, I believe, is here.
Yes, thank you. I'm gonna promote him to a panelist. Is that working or not working? Oops.
Tom, there you are.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, so Tom Hughes with Hughes Environmental Consulting here on behalf of Chris Horan. You may remember the 563rd Street one was the multi-unit building out there. When they were building it, Chris hired a landscape architect who came up with this, wonderful landscape plan and all kinds of shrubs, a lot of coastal stuff, but not necessarily things that were native to Plum Island and do well in sand. So we had some of those shrubs die off. And in addition, we filled in voids with American beach grass, and we had that drought. And I don't know how many of you are aware, but the rabbits on Plum Island and also in Salisbury Beach learned that during a drought, you can get moisture from the roots of dune grass, and the freshly planted ones are easy to pull out. So, so in the end, what we end up with is we end up with some areas where we have not been able to get the vegetation to establish. We've got a lot of good coverage out there, but we just don't have enough. The area, what we would like to do, and I think it's probably best if we just do a quick site visit to kind of look at it. But we'd like to convert over to some native shrubs that we know will do well, like Virginia rose, bayberry, I forget what the third one was, but basically things that are native to Plum Island that do well in a sandy environment. And the primary areas we need to get coverage over are along the split rail fence we installed along 65th Street, and kind of in the area where you see the arrowwood viburnum. So like an arrowwood viburnum is not going to do well on Plum Island. Kind of in that area, and then just above the existing cedar to remain in that kind of void there. We tried American beach grass in that area and it just didn't take. So so it's kind of that area there, and then there's an area where it shows a beach plum in the upper right. That area seems to have been converted to a parking area. The beach plum that was placed there is gone. So what we want to do is, again, we want to just basically plant shrubs in that area, and we'd be doing it about 6 foot on center. And I think that's the most likely to be successful in getting the overall coverage that we need to do, and doing it in a way where we're assured of plants surviving.
How are you going to get people to not park there if they're?
Well, I think it'll be pretty clear when we have to put some plants in there. We're not just going to put one beach plum. We'll do 6 foot on center, shrubs in there. So it'll be a lot clearer. The other thing that we may be able to do, and we can look at this when we're on site, to the right of that beach plum, when we first came into permit, the original survey property line looked like it ran kind of right along the edge of those plants. And it turns out that some later work determined the property line's about 10 feet over. And there is an old parking area next to that we could potentially reclaim and not hurt anybody's feelings and just plant that. But it would give us the same numbers in terms of overall coverage. So it's certainly something we could talk about, but I get the sense that if the current owners see that, a parking area that wasn't approved is removed and replanted, they really want this certificate issued. And I've met out there a couple times with Chris, and we've tried to move this thing forward, and we've had a few issues we've come back into you on before. So I'd like to just move forward, get these plants ordered and get them installed if that's, good with you guys. And I think probably the best thing to do, like I said, is let's just set up a quick site visit, and we can go out and look and make sure that everybody's in agreement on what we do.
Can I just ask a quick question though, Tom? Were
Yeah.
we're looking at the planting plan. Were these plants planted?
Yes,
They all were.
they
and
were.
they
And
didn't
if
survive. No?
right, well, some didn't survive. And if you recall, Julia, we walked the site after these plants went in,
Mhm.
and it's a great looking plan, but we had committed to planting like everything that wasn't otherwise shown in the permitting process, because it was a very large building going in. We had a surplus of vegetation from the project, but there's a big void between that existing cedar to remain and the existing relocated cedar, right? There's that big void. So we had to plant all those voids to be, we had to go beyond what was shown on the landscape plan. The landscape plan didn't really meet the permit commitments.
So site visit. When are
Yeah.
people available?
I mean, that kind of swirl of, I think it's big blue stem
Mhm.
or switchgrass, that all is looking good. You know, so some parts of this came out really nicely, but the unfortunate thing is some people look at the CZM plant list and they think it's all appropriate for coastal dune. And I really try to stick with stuff that just is native to Plum Island. It tends to do better.
Yeah, no, that's certainly fine with me, and
Yeah.
more planting is better, and of course, the drought killed a lot of our plants a couple of years ago too, so.
Yeah. So what's your availability for a site visit?
Well, I'm fine most days this week and next week, so.
Going to be pretty rainy, certainly tomorrow. You could possibly do, I don't know what Thursday afternoon's like, or if we want to do early next week.
Yeah, we might want to do early next week just because of the last I saw, there was a lot of rain
Yeah.
possible this week.
How's Monday or Tuesday next week?
It's fine for me.
Yeah.
Monday is a little,
Uh, Tuesday afternoon is okay with me.
All right.
Yeah, Tuesday afternoon, I don't think I can do Monday.
All right. What time on Tuesday by afternoon? What's good?
1 o'clock?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, works for me.
Does that fit with you, Julia?
yep, that works.
Okay.
Okay.
So why don't we set that, and then I'll meet you out there. I'll see if I can get the guy who's going to be doing the landscape installation to be there too, and then we can just hash it all out. He can order the plants and get them in.
Julie, would you mind sending a Outlook reminder?
I will. Okay, sure thing.
Thanks.
Tom, have we done a certificate on that the single family house that's right on Northern Boulevard? Yeah.
No, I don't believe we have. Oh, the one on Northern Boulevard is not under the control anymore of Chris. He sold that to a private person who built the project, and my understanding is they had the same issue with the bunnies. There's something going on right now, I think personal issues with that owner, so I'm not quite sure where they're at in following up, but they had the same thing. They put dozens and dozens and dozens of American beachgrass plants out, probably hundreds, and the bunnies just ripped them all out. So we'll need to address that at some point.
Yeah.
But right now I'm just trying to get 3 and 5 closed. 5 looks good. I mean, sorry, 3 looks good. 3 is that single family home on 63rd.
All right,
Okay.
that's
right.
set. All right, on to
Thank you.
regular things. Andrew Cole, 95 Water Street, request for extension.
Actually, can you
Oh,
look at the?
what are we doing? Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, I switched the agenda a little bit because we had some scheduling problems.
All right, never mind. Lisa Nardone, 5 Harbor Street, request for determination.
Okay, Tom Hughes with Hughes Environmental Consulting. You may recall we were pretty much good with this, only we gave you a lot of information and it was too close to your meeting date for you guys to read through with regard to the 50% thing. So assuming you guys have all read through that, I can go back over things, but this is a pretty simple, pretty much within the footprint of the building. And really the 50% rule was the big deal here. So
The
should I just open it
valuation
up to
letter.
questions at this point?
This is the letter that was submitted right before the last meeting from the appraiser. And down at the bottom, he gives the summary, which shows a 27% increase in market value post-construction.
Right, and we also gave you an updated structural letter that removed elements of the project that had been taken out of the project. And I think that was it.
So Julia, does this answer our questions?
Does, because just need to make sure that the increase in value of the structure after construction of the proposed renovations would not be more than 50%. And it's at 27%, that previously they just hadn't given us that comparison. They only gave us the as-is appraisal report. So now that he submitted the post-construction appraisal report and then gave us the summary document showing what the difference in value would be. So this does answer it. It's below the threshold for substantial improvement. So they can do the project without having to elevate the entire thing on pilings.
Okay. So we would need a -3 for this?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll make a motion to issue a -3 determination.
I'll second.
Okay. No, excuse me, roll call, Steve Moore,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes,
Dan Warshaw,
Yes.
Bill Mullen,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
All right, thank you very much. I know they're anxious to move forward.
Okay. All right, Julie, who's next?
Okay, so next is the Paul Don Port Development 1782nd Street.
What Julie said.
Okay.
That is right.
Good evening, Tom Hughes with Hughes Environmental Consulting. You may remember this one. This is the one, Tom Lawrence. You guys had an enforcement order. We came in with an after the fact notice of intent. And we came up with a way to elevate the existing deck to get 2 feet clearance. You guys issued a variance on this one. And we have given you an as-built that shows that we met the clearances, the 2-foot clearance around the raised deck that we had agreed to do. Mr. Lawrence put in the plantings, put in little rope fences to try to contain the walkways, put in the crushed shell walkways, so we have defined paths, and it looks really good. All this work was done last year, right before I got COVID for a month, and then it just kind of fell by the wayside to get submitted into you, as did a lot of things back then. So I'm just trying to catch up, and this is one of those things.
For reference, so this is the as-built that they submitted. This was the proposed or the approved plan. So you can see, is
Right.
this right?
So
Right.
yeah, and if you well, you just had it on a panel that had little red numbers on it next to the deck, and those were the proposed clearance areas.
You all see that or no?
Yes, if you go over to the right, so you can see where we had, the estimated clearance once it was all lifted up. And so we pretty much got those clearances. And if you remember, there was like a berm of loam that was kind of built up around the edge of the deck as well. So we lifted the deck. I think the deck went up about 5 inches. I think it went up a ½ inch higher than we had estimated, and the loam went. We don't quite have the 2.9. I don't know why that didn't work out when the loam came out, but I wanted to make sure we didn't remove sand. So it may have been we hit sand before we thought we would. But we've got over 2 feet clear, which was really the main commitment we made. We have 2.4 where I thought we would have less at the other end. If you take a look at the first. So if you look at the top, you got 2.4, 2.3.
Yep.
And then 2.1, 2.2, and 2.05. So we made it around the whole thing with over 2.
Earlier on, right after the work was done, part of the mitigation that was agreed upon was to remove a lot of the concrete that was around the site.
Right.
And restore it with beach grade sand. And so they did submit right after, during and after construction, these photographs of the removal of the concrete area. So you can see them doing that. It's really, you can see it's right on the beach. And again here. So that was just sort of evidence at the time. But Tom, we do need site photos now, associated with the.
Yeah, I
certificate.
uploaded them into the system. This whole site photo sheet. If you want, I can share them. What I
You have them
uploaded.
right now? Yeah, could you just, so then we can just take care of it right
Yeah,
now?
let me just find them. Hold on a second. I did. Oh, I'm looking at your thing. Hold on a second. I'll need you to stop sharing. Let me just get them open. Okay. Yeah, these are uploaded into the OpenGov thing. So if you can see, here's, you know, the rope things, these are all planted.
Okay.
You've got the clearance.
Yep.
And you can see right here where this doesn't line up anymore because it was all lifted up. And this one is a little earlier than the rest. All of these were taken around the time the survey was done. I just have this because I was out there when they were planting, you know, the plugs of American beach grass. So I just thought it was good to show you that, yes, you know, that didn't just come in on its own. It was actually put there. So I gave you a whole bunch of photos of the site. And that's all uploaded into the system. And Tom no longer owns it. It's owned by Paul Don, as I said.
So Tom, where are the pictures that were concrete and aren't anymore? Which,
So Julia showed you those pictures. Concrete was this whole area was all the big concrete apron that came off, and some of it went under the sand. I don't know if you remember, but this whole foundation had like a, you know, 5 or 6 foot concrete apron that went around the whole thing. And so that was part of the mitigation and justification for the variance was the fact that, you know, removal of that much concrete from the dune system more than offset the, you know, the impact from the deck. And there were some other considerations in terms of planting and I believe there was an escrow,
Yeah.
Julia, that was paid into the city that the city can use for Moby mats or whatever. We were going to do some nourishment on the beach, but there was complications because the beach is a shared ownership. And you may remember that Mr. Lawrence and the neighbor weren't always seeing eye to eye on things. So so I think in the end, the escrow money was just paid.
Okay. We have any questions? Not hearing any. Anybody, we have a motion?
motion to issue the certificate of compliance?
Second.
All right, roll call. Steve Moore,
Yes.
David Vine,
I'm gonna recuse myself. I did 7 years ago, so I'll be consistent and I'll recuse myself from this.
okay. Dan Warshall,
Yes.
Bill Mullen,
Yes.
and I vote yes. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next item is Andrew Cole, 95 Water Street, request for extension. Julie, your sound is off.
Sorry, Andrew, I'm gonna promote you to a panelist if you haven't already been moved over, and I thought I saw Teresa on here as well. Yeah, I'll just.
Teresa Portante.
Hi, Julia, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Andrew.
Sorry, I wasn't familiar with this format. I didn't know. I kept ending and rejoining. I didn't know what to do there. Sorry.
Sorry about that.
No, all good. And then I
going
think the only other
to-
person for us would be Gary McAllister with GZA.
Okay, let me see if I can find Gary McAllister. Here he is. Okay. Hopefully that will work. Should be able to move over momentarily. Here we go. All right, so here's your extension request. I also have the old plan that was approved for this area that we've been discussing so much over the past few years. So I'll just let you all, maybe we could start with the update on the revised plans, and then we can just do the extension.
Okay. I guess I'll kick it off, and Julie and Gary, or sorry, rather Teresa and Gary can add in some details. But we had met with Mr. Vine and Mr. Moore on the site there in January timeframe, if I'm not mistaken. Reviewed the area because we were having unsuccessful revegetation. Looking at the area and the fact that we had the water pooling with the high tide, we discussed in the field the application of soil, sloping it back to the culvert, the outlet pipe rather, and the installation of a duckbill valve to reduce flow in, retard flow in, and allow water to escape. General idea with reseeding. That plan is what's reflected in that markup that was sent over with a few weeks back at this point. Do you have that open by chance?
That's what I still don't have. All I got from you was just when you said we're gonna do the duck valve and we're gonna loam and seed. I didn't get an actual plan.
I'll submit it directly after this. I can attempt to take the screen. I will apologize if I had thought it was attached and
It
sent.
could have been that I somehow missed it. So in either way,
Let me see. I'm just unfamiliar with Zoom as much as I am with doing Teams, so I'm able to share screen. There it is.
Andrew, I'm happy to share if you can't get it.
Yeah, if you have it up, and if you're more savvy with Zoom, I'm clicking around and.
want me to stop sharing so you can share?
Yes, please. Thank you.
There we go. Thank you, Teresa.
And
And this is sort of the plan marked up with that discussion that we had with Mr. Moore and Mr. Vine, and Gary was there as well. And Gary's on; he could speak to some of this as well. But if it zoomed in a touch, there we go. I mean, in general, you see the green arrows reflecting the added soil sloped towards that pipe that heads out through the seawall, and the duckbill valve installed in the inlet of that pipe going out the seawall. We would reseed the area, and in general, the idea there again is, when there's those high tide events, as that water comes in, it will be able to, leave with the sloping. It will head towards an exit, and that duckbill valve will reduce slow flow kind of concept. We were intending to reseed utilizing the original seeding plan that was in the set that was provided original. I mean, that is consistent with some of the native species. That's what we were going to reseed with, but more of the herbaceous seed type. We weren't going to be doing the larger shrubs. So that's kind of the concept of the repair or the additional measures to try to address this area and the commission's concern of the water flowing in and it not being vegetated. Gary, I don't know if there's more to kind of comment on with the markup here and thoughts and general kind of consensus, what we talked about with Mr. Moore, Mr. Vine in the field.
Yeah, we can, when we were out on the site, I think everyone was in pretty much agreement that a combination of filling the area up and putting in the backflow preventer would be sufficient to allow this area to vegetate and also improve the aesthetic quality of the walkway. The area to the southwest is pretty well shrubbed up and it's not very visible. So it's just this area off to the right here of the walkway that I think was the only area of concern. There is a bush, an existing bush there that's going to need to be removed. I don't know the name of it. Maybe someone else does, but
Well, it's more than a bush. It's a pretty large cedar tree that I'd hate to see go.
it would unfortunately requires at least a foot of fill in that area to get that area built up. Which would, I would guess, probably kill the tree if we were to try and save it.
That's one of the lower parts of the area?
Yeah, the whole area before the trail was built was fairly gently sloped, coming back from the river. And so the whole part of the project was to, of course, establish the river revetment. And then after the fact came the rail trail. And so between the revetment and the rail trail, we end up with a comparatively low area that prior to all of this construction had some sort of low growth vegetation, was able to establish, but with all the changes over the years, that's gone. And so I guess what we're trying to do is adapt to the existing topography out there the best we can.
Okay, but if we have to remove that cedar tree, I'd like to see it replaced, but obviously not something that large because they wouldn't transplant well.
It's either a removal of the tree or if we were to leave it and add material around it and it dies, I mean, it's one or the other. A tree of that size, that's pretty substantial ask to do a replanting of that tree. I mean, the ask here is to try to improve this water settling and get it revegetated. We can discuss with the contractor who's going to be out there this week, trying to take the soils in and around it. But to Gary's point, if we add that soil in and around it, it could stress the plant. So I guess that's my position on that.
Okay. So I guess another issue that I have is that with this duckbill, it's going to prevent the water from coming in through the culvert. But the water also gets in here from both ends of the existing revetment. Up by the Coast Guard station on a real high tide, that water comes in there and flows right down the rail trail into this pool. And also from the yacht club on the other side, on their boat ramp, it comes up over that boat ramp and flows not directly into this pool, but it does flow onto your property, which required sandbags being put around the buildings. So this is not going to completely solve the problem of water getting in there.
Yeah, I think there's still going to be, as you're stating, sort of weather events and the high tide where it comes maybe in and around in path of least resistance. But that duckbill valve, it does allow water to flow out, and we are sloping it back to the pipe that heads out. So I guess
right.
At the end of the day, as water recedes, it would infiltrate and then run out the pipe.
Okay. So the seed mix that you're going to plant in there, is it salt tolerant seed mix? Because the soil is saturated with salt, and several times a year that's going to be filled with salt water. So if it's not salt water tolerant, it's never going to vegetate.
I'm reading through the list of plants in the herbaceous area here. We can provide you with a response as far as salt tolerance of these plants. I can't say. Some of them are pretty adaptable, to be honest. But as far as salt tolerance, I can't say of these plants. There's more than a half dozen. If half of them, can manage it, or if not. But the change of conditions, again, sloping this and the duckbill valve, I think it's going to be less inundated. It's going to have less impact from salt water. So I guess my point being, some of these plants should be able to get started, but we will look at the plants that are in the list here and could attempt to modify with herbaceous species that are more adaptable to salt tolerant conditions.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be better. So we don't have to go round and round again on this. One question I had regarding the tree, and I don't know enough about tree plantings to even know whether this is viable or not, but is there a way to, like you were talking about possibly putting a berm around the tree? Would it be done to put some whatever the weed cloth is around the edge of that berm, and put some riprap in there around the tree? Would riprap mess with the life of the tree? And instead of filling it in with sand or with soil, put some riprap and try and keep the soil out of that riprap?
Gary, do you want to start? Or I guess my opinion on that. So we have the riprap that's here. Some of that's going to be removed. I mean, some of that could be used in and around the tree. The only concern I have is if we don't keep the grades and sloping it towards the pipe out, when you have water that comes into the area, it's going to settle in around that cedar.
Okay. All right. No, I get that. Okay.
I guess what I was attempting is maybe if it is towards the top end of this low point area. So if we slope it to the pipe out, right, but at the cedar itself, try to kind of bench it down a little bit, really getting the contractor's opinion, if it's feasible to retain.
Okay. Yeah, I'm fine with that. I want it to live too, but if it's not gonna, then it's not gonna.
I guess the only other thing would be if you do have to remove it, we would like another tree planted.
Yeah, obviously nowhere near that size, but something to replace it.
Within this swale area.
In whatever area near there that's viable, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm able to commit to this particular area. This is sort of our sticking point to close this out. This cedar, truthfully, it survived the inundation of salt water here, right? So I kind of feel as though it's a tree that can be retained. It's just a matter of, to Gary's point, if they're adding soils and if it's directly in the way of where they need to address the contour. So my first attempt here is going to be talking with the contractor. Can we retain it? Is it still manageable to slope and get this water to leave? And then if it is a cut and remove, a planting in this area would be manageable, but I guess species to be determined and size to be determined.
Okay. Good with me. If anybody else, but.
Yeah, but when you get to that point, if you could let us know. And given that the cedar has survived and is one of the very few things that has survived in these conditions, maybe it makes sense to plant another cedar in its place.
Yeah. I mean, I'm perfectly fine doing a in kind cedar for cedar kind of concept. Yeah. I mean, it's just a matter of the contractor sourcing it and being able to sort of get it on site and then excavating with equipment there. I guess my only fear is just the size of the cedar and equipment that it would need. Double mobilization kind of concept is all.
Okay. All right. Do we have anything else? Anybody want to make a motion to continue or extend the order conditions?
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
For a year,
1
we're
year.
saying.
1 year.
Yeah. Okay.
Second.
Yep. Okay. All right. Roll call. Steve Moore,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
Dan Warshall,
Yes.
Bill Mullen,
Yes.
and I vote yes. All right. Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Work
Thank
is
you.
anticipated to start this week. Just as FYI, Julia, we had commented on that and discussed, so that's still the plan.
Yep. Okay, great. Thank you for letting me know.
All right.
Have a good evening. Thank you.
Very good. Good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Oops. Oh,
Is,
what did I just do? Hold on a second.
those are the minutes. Where are we right now, Julie? Oh, wait.
Um, So now we are moving on to 2955th Street. and
Okay.
Somehow or other, I just lost all my documents that I had stacked up here. So you're gonna have to hold on for one sec.
Oops.
Let me just pull up the 2955th Street. Oh, here we go. All right, I got it back. So, sorry about that. 2955th Street. Can you all see my screen with photograph 1, photograph 2?
No.
No.
Okay, sorry. All right, can you see that now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so now we have 2 orders of conditions that need certificates of compliance for 2955th Street, and they're both relatively old. One's 2002, one's 2008, and the representatives, I believe, are here, so I'm going to move them over to speak to this tonight. Vita, Vita, I'm promoting you to a panelist. Hold on tight, and then you'll be able to speak. Works. Okay. So, and I don't see anyone else here that I recognize to represent these projects, but Vita did a lot of the research into these orders for the seller. And Vita, do you want to give us a little brief overview? I have, just so you'll see what I have here. I have the this is the old letter on what the project was about, the scope of work from the summary and the notice of intent from Vine Associates, and then this was the letter from David Vine back in 2009 attesting to the work that was done, and that was for 051-01814, and then we also have 051-0580, which is the older one. But I think we can discuss them both together. But why don't you just give us a start and let the commission know what it is that you all need.
Yeah, before you start, if you don't mind,
Yep.
I'm gonna recuse myself from the second one
Okay.
because I worked on that project, and the first one, I didn't have any involvement in, so I guess I don't have to recuse myself.
Okay.
Did I unmute?
Yes,
Okay,
you did.
yes, you did.
Okay.
Thank
I was
you.
trying to figure that out for a while. Hi, good evening. So let's see. I have done the legwork on this, but I am not a lawyer or the owner. The owners are elderly, and so they couldn't, partake of this. So I tried to get everything possible to show you that the conditions were met. So I hope this is okay.
Okay, so I'll give you a little summary to the commission. So back in 2002, this home on Plum Island at the end of 55th Street, right at the edge of the dune. And you remember there was a lot of erosion taking place in that area back then. 55th, 57th, 53rd Streets were sort of like the hot spots on Plum Island. And this home, which you can see the picture of here, the McCarthy's house, they wanted to put on the second floor back in 2002. And when they wanted to put on the second floor, they weren't going to change the footprint or anything else about the house, the decks. Adding the second floor was a substantial improvement. And so as we regularly say, that means you have to put the house up on pilings. So what they did at the time was they submitted a notice of intent to elevate the existing home on pilings in the same footprint and add the second floor, which they did in 2002. And that is this order of conditions here. It was way back. So this is the old order of conditions, and it's strictly for the proposed foundation because they weren't doing anything else that triggered Conservation Commission review. It was just lifting it up and putting in those pilings. And you can see they explain that here. Because we're proposing a substantial improvement to the existing structure, we're required to place the house on open pilings. And that's what this was all about. And then these are the photos. They put in concrete sonotubes, which back in 2002, apparently that was okay. These are actually photos of the completed project now, but you can see the sonotubes that were originally put in and how the house was elevated back in 2002. So that's the 2002 order of conditions, which in my judgment was done according to the approved plans. Then we move on to the 2008 order of conditions, during which because of all the erosion that was happening out there, and it was really looking a little bit scary in this particular area, they wanted to make sure that the structure was really structurally sound and that those pilings were really extra strong. So they hired Vine and Associates to supplement and sort of, as Dave would put it, put belts and suspenders on the existing structure. And that's what this one is. They said their building foundation consists of 7 to 12 inch sonotubes, 17 to 12 inch sonotubes. And the building, let's see, that does not provide an adequate barrier to the 2-story building. So the scope of work was to stabilize the foundation by expanding the sonotubes by means of the placement of helical piles attached to the side of each sonotube, 12 inches in diameter. And so they did that in 2008, and in 2009, David Vine of Vine Associates at the time wrote this letter reviewing the completed work, that it was done according to the approved plans. So we have that confirmation, and in addition to that letter from back in 2009, we can see today's photographs, and these were taken by the applicant and their representatives. You can see let me see if I can find the picture of this, the helical piles that are there supporting the existing sonotubes. And there's some pictures underneath as well, so you can see that was done, and it's incredibly stable, and the foundation is solid and not going anywhere. And in addition, they don't have an erosion problem anymore, so things are in good shape. One of the special conditions with that order of conditions in 2008 also was to remove the lattice that was surrounding parts of the foundation. And you can see all that lattice has also been removed. So there's no more lattice surrounding the foundation. It's completely open underneath. So it took a little digging, but starting from not much of any information on this.
Right.
We did and Vita did some amazing detective work. And
Thank you,
David.
Julia.
David
You were
was
so
both.
much help. Thank you so much.
And we got it sort of figured out. So that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, the
So
only
the-
thing I'm not sure about, Julia, is that I don't know if those piles were put in 2002. I think they were just putting in sonotubes.
The sonotubes in 2002. You're right. It was the sonotubes that were 2002. And it was the piles that were in 2008.
Yeah, and the piles were designed for something like, I can't, I'm not 100% sure, but it was something like 15 to 18 feet of erosion. So, I mean, they were substantially put in.
Yes.
And those just screw in, correct?
Yeah.
Are they driven into the ground?
Well, they have to get us, no, I'm back. You had to get a certain amount of embedment, and then they were proof tested in the field.
So do they screw into the ground?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Okay.
Okay. We have anything else?
No.
Okay. So let's work on the first one, 0580. And can I get a motion regarding the order or certificate of compliance with that?
I'll make a motion to issue the certificate of compliance for this one.
Second,
Okay, roll call, Steve Moore,
Yes,
David Vine,
Yes,
Dan Warshall,
yes.
Bill Mullen,
Yes,
and I vote yes. And on the second one, 0814, can I get a motion on that one?
yes, I'll make the motion for 0814.
Second,
All right, roll call, Steve Moore,
Yes,
Dan Warshall,
yes.
Bill Mullen,
yes.
and I vote yes. All right. There we are. All right, thank you, Vita.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Have a great night,
you.
everybody.
You
Thanks,
too.
Rita.
Thank you. Thank you, Julia.
You. See ya.
Okay. Next item is the City of Newburyport Plymouth Spring Road request for extension.
Yes, okay, so again, let me somehow or other get back to sharing the right screen here. See the agenda, or what are you seeing right now?
Seeing those photos still.
Okay. All right. Funny, because I'm not seeing these photos. I apologize for this strange situation. Okay, here we go. So yes, the Plummer Spring Bridge. Here we are. And you all might remember that this project was permitted a few years ago, back in 2021, and was to repair the bridge, which is much in need of repair and has been closed off for a long time. And we had some site visits out there and did this permitting jointly with West Newbury as well. And I don't know if they have a representative here tonight. If so, raise your hand. But I don't see anyone on this. I think that they weren't able to attend, and it was really just the consultant. They want an extension because what happened was they sort of set up all the erosion controls to start work, and they did some initial tree removal right sort of along this side of the road over here, and then they bumped into municipal funding issues. I don't know why they began the work without having those funding issues taken care of, but regardless, they put it on pause and they have been sort of on the back burner ever since. So they would like a 3-year extension on this. And I have the letter from them. I believe, yeah, this is the letter. Yeah, so there's basically saying that project activities began early 2023 with removal of the hazardous trees. Yeah, there were some trees that were falling down. So they took those down. Could not be completed under the original COC due to initial funding constraints. So they anticipate putting the project out to bid this summer for 2025 construction. And nothing has changed in the scope of work or in the project plans, etc. So they really just want an extension so that they can get this thing started in 2025.
so Julia, is there a big hue and cry to get this thing done, or is it okay to just leave it the way it is and have it be a park? Because everybody seems to enjoy it the way it is.
I know that's always been your position, Steve, on this one.
I mean,
I
you know,
don't
it's
know.
been
I haven't
cl-
heard.
it's been closed for what, 6, 7, 8 years, and people are used to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been a while. I to be honest, I just don't know much about why it was paused and what the level of priority it is for people or for the administration. But I do know that, you know, it was a priority. It is a broken bridge. It is a main travel route for a lot of people between Newbury and West Newbury. Not everybody, but certainly for a lot of people in those neighborhoods. And so it's always been on the agenda to get it done. And that's why, you know, they moved forward with permitting. I got delayed, I guess.
if I remember right, the bid came in considerably higher than the amount that they had, and that's what blew things up. That's how I recall it.
That makes
Well, maybe there's now what's the name of that one? The,
Infrastructure.
yeah, the IRA or some infrastructure act that there's probably money floating around there for something like this, so. Yeah, I had no idea that they were even gonna be going out to bid this year. All right, what would folks like to do?
Motion to issue a 3-year extension?
second,
All right, roll call, Steve Moore,
Yes, reluctantly.
David Vine,
Yes.
Dan Warshaw,
Yes.
Bill Mullen,
yes.
and I vote yes. All righty. We do not have any other. We're up to public hearings, yes, Julie?
Yes, we are.
All right, can I get a motion to open the public hearings?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, Steve Moore,
Yes,
David Vine,
Yes.
Dan Warshaw,
Yes.
Bill Mullen,
Yes,
and I vote yes. And are we on Sharon Sullivan, Julie?
We are on Sharon Sullivan, 1654th Street, and they have requested a continuance, and I apologize, I
Okay.
lost my agenda.
All right, that's to the next meeting, right?
Yes,
Okay. All right, and the next meeting date is
May
May
next meeting date.
21st.
Yes, 21st.
you know, I think we might have been just a little unclear how we ended that up with regards to the lattice that was underground, ground level. For one, I think we have to make sure they're not gonna add in any lattice onto this new, I think newly expanded area. And I don't know if we should ask them to take out the existing lattice around the corner. If
Are
we
we on
can.
1654th Street? Is
Yep.
this what you-
Yep.
Yep. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, well, we should
Yeah,
move this
we're gonna need
discussion to-
them here for that, and I
But
think we
hold
can,
that thought. Make
yeah, hold
make
that thought.
Okay.
well, I think I did ask when it was put on, and whoever was representing them didn't know. But everything looked kind of new.
Okay,
Anyway,
Well,
Well-
let's get
Well-
to that when we get to that.
right, yeah, let's discuss that then. All
I'll
right,
make a motion to
continue.
continue to May 21st. Thank you.
second,
All right, roll call, Steve Moore,
yes,
David Vine,
Yes.
Dan Warshaw,
Yes.
Bill Mullen,
Yes.
I vote yes.
Now,
All righty,
can you see the agenda now? I hope.
Yeah.
yes.
I can see the agenda now. All right,
So glad.
glad you showed it. Next item is Stephen Marshall, 956th Street.
Yes. Okay.
Hughes pops back into view.
Yep. Good evening.
Mostly.
Right.
Good evening, Tom
Yeah.
Hughes with Hughes Environmental Consulting here on behalf of Steve Marshall. Just from the outset, let me just state, we don't have a DEP file number yet, and the vegetation conditions appear to have grown in a bit based on Julia's recent site visit over what we saw when we did our survey and what was shown on the most recent aerials. So I think what would make sense is maybe we could piggyback on that site visit we're doing out on Plum Island to do another one either right after or right before next Tuesday, and we could take a look at conditions and adjust our plans accordingly. We've got plenty of room to move, I think, in terms of what you'll see for the project. So the project is a tear down rebuild, put up on piles. Julie, if you just want to go through a couple slides here. Keep going past all my narrative.
Yep.
I'm sorry, I didn't have time to throw together a presentation file.
Right. That's all right, I got it. I'm just
Yeah.
trying to see if I can make this a little easier and scroll down.
I miss the old version of Adobe.
Oh my gosh.
It's
Insane
just
how
brutal.
much more complicated this is. All right. I'm on my way. All right, so here's the
all right.
locust map.
All right. So the project's located on Plum Island, a barrier beach, coastal dune within land subject to coastal storm flowage. Maybe go to the next one. So we're located kind of where the VE and AO kind of all come together, right in that area right there. So this is the way the site looked in April 23. You can see, you can actually even see the difference between my aerial from 21 and this. The vegetation appears to have been kicked back, and that may be related to that drought we went through. But there's obviously a lot more sand in these photos, and it appears that it's coming back with all this rain and everything we've had. So we can look at how that's adjusted and adjust our numbers and adjust the project. We can go to the next one. So here are some of the site photos. We can go to.
Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, that didn't look familiar. Yeah. Okay, so here are the site photos.
Yep.
So you can see, there's a lot of sand. Within the sand, you can see some kind of beaten down sprigs. So maybe those came back to life, which might be what's going on. But you can see even without that, there's a lot of sand on site, and there even was a lot of sand in the other photos. You can also see there's a lot of concrete around the existing building, solid foundation, a big gravel parking area. So this isn't one of those sites where we need every square foot of vegetation to make the project work. So I'm not really worried about it. I just want to make sure we get it accurate on the plan set and then make the project fit. So if we can go. Okay, so this is what the existing condition profile views. If we can go to the next sheet. Okay, this is the plan view from the architect. Next sheet. Okay, so here's profile view. It's Eileen Graff's design. These probably start to look familiar to you guys, but elevated up on piles. It does not exceed 20% of an increase in structure size, so it fits the redevelopment standard, and elevated significantly above the floodplain. We can go to the next. So you can see sort of as surveyed, the green is the areas we called vegetated. There was a sand area that was kind of off on the left-hand side. We did call a lot of those areas where there were sparse sprigs as vegetated. So we were trying to get this to be accurate, but we want to, when we do a site visit, we can sort of field verify and update anything we need to. For point of reference, the picnic table in the back is a good way to kind of see when we're out there, kind of how our vegetation line lines up with everything. There's a couple other features like that concrete area. And then Julia, I don't know how it looked behind the driveway, but that area was pretty barren as well.
So I did take a photo or two, whether it was yesterday or today. This is what the area looks like now. Here's that picnic table. So the house is over here to the right. You can see there's sort of the bare area that runs alongside the house and behind the house. But this area looked definitely more vegetated than I think your previous aerials showed.
Yeah, looking at that area that we called sand off to the left doesn't appear to exist anymore. So there must have just been dormant root underneath that it's come up. So we can, again, we'll do the site visit if the commission would like, and then we'll update that. We can go to the proposed panel, which I think is the next sheet. So what we did is we tried to consolidate things, give defined recreation areas. It's a big lot, so we figured we would have the two clamshell patio areas. If we don't have enough vegetation for those, and we can look at the vegetation table. We're creating as currently counted, we're creating a significant amount of vegetation surplus, even with this plan. So if we end up short on the vegetation number, we can always pare down the, like the clamshell patio on the left could be pared down. Even the one on the back, if we needed to, could be pared down. We do want to provide some outdoor recreation space. But it's just a matter of making sure the math works. So,
Tom,
yeah,
there seems to me to be an excessive amount of parking here. You've got
yeah. So
parking.
this is a single family. It's going to have an in-law. So it's
Well, there's parking for 3 cars underneath the house, and then it looks like there's parking for 3 cars outside of the house, and then there's another parking lot beside the house.
yeah. I mean, their assumption is basically that they're going to be tight on parking with the family, just people coming to visit. And we have the vegetation numbers to make this work, or at least I believe we do, even with that change. But we do need to make sure that what we're depicting is the accurate current conditions.
But and also, Tom, like it's more than about the numbers, because we're looking at maps. We're just looking at, a plan view of all this. But what we've seen, like over on 63rd Street, is that it doesn't always pan out the way it shows on the plan when you present it. So a lot of times the vegetation doesn't take that well.
Right.
And so I just think we need to be very careful about how much we count as vegetated versus unvegetated in the existing.
Right. If we can look at the table, if you can pan around on the plan, maybe on the other sheet, there's a vegetation impact. Okay, right here. So you can see, again, I want to disclaim this based on our current sand count. This is 1,000 square foot surplus of vegetation.
How
So
did you count I guess that's the question as
well. So that's the question. If you go back and you look at the existing conditions panel, we showed you what we counted and didn't count. And our footprint of our building is essentially right on top of the old building. So we're not, all of the new stuff is the clamshell driveways, the walk to get out to the back, and the one off to the left. And keep in mind, right now they park on that right-hand side all the way back almost to the property line. So they have a lot of parking on site now. And the one other thing that I've seen on Plum Island is when you don't give people enough parking, they tend to create it over time. So I'd rather, if we can afford it with the vegetation count, I'd rather show enough parking rather than have it be something that creeps over time. But regardless, we can make whatever adjustments. This structure does also have an elevator proposed that is compliant with the FEMA technical bulletin standards, pile supported, consistent with others that you guys have approved. So with that, I mean, I think that what makes sense is for me to, answer any questions that you guys have, see if there are any abutters here, set up the site visit. We can adjust our vegetation numbers to reflect what's actually happening on the ground now, and then adjust our plan accordingly. If it means pairing up one of the parking areas or significantly cutting down one of the patio areas, we can do that.
So is there a fence along 56th Street there? Is that?
Yeah, there's a fence. You saw it in Julia's photos, like a
Okay.
sort of old picket fence.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so that would prevent parking creep in that direction.
Right.
And I guess if we keep the parking as proposed, I'd like to see something that prevents parking creep in the other areas.
Okay. Yeah, we can look at, I'll talk to clients about, I mean, we can talk about cobble edging. We could maybe even put like cedar posts or something.
Okay.
Just, I want to think about, snow removal and whether something like that would get damaged, but we'll try to come up with something.
Okay.
Okay.
And for all the vegetation, it's all beach grass. Are there any shrubs planned, for a little variety or?
So I believe in the narrative. I usually put in the narrative that, for the purpose of the application, everything on site right now is pretty much American beach grass. That's all we were planning, but I usually put my list of native shrubs because what happens inevitably is these people spend an awful lot of time with Eileen. They work on floor plans, they work on the house, and they can't think about the outdoors. And then they start building and realize they want some more plants or whatever. If you would like, we can look to try to maybe get some cedars in there, some bayberry, maybe some beach plum, and I can talk to them about that if
Yeah.
that's something you'd like to see.
The more the better.
Yep.
Okay.
And I should mention Amelanchier, which is also a beautiful plant for out there.
Okay, does the commission have any more questions right now? Not hearing any, does the public have any questions or comments? Raise your digital hand if so. I see, oops. So Rachel Forrest raised her hand, but no, I'm not seeing anybody. Okay. So we're gonna probably do a site visit right before the other one. Depends on whether we want to go to this on the way out or the way in.
I would prefer to go after.
Okay.
So
And
should we sort of tentatively say, we'll get there about 1:30?
yeah,
One,
Okay.
1 o'clock and then 1:30, so 1 o'clock at 563rd Street
Yeah,
and 1:30 at 956th Street.
right.
okay. All right, so you want a continuance?
Yeah, to the 21st. I really do think, once we get our veg stuff updated, we'll know the math and we'll know how much we have to pare back on the sort of clamshell scape to make everything work. And then
Okay.
I'll talk to the clients about one, whether or not they want to replace the picket fence with a post and rail or something along the road. And also what we might be able to do to kind of limit creep from the driveway.
Okay. All right, and a motion to continue?
So move.
Second,
Okay, roll call, Steve Moore,
Yes.
David Vine,
yes.
Dan Warshall,
Yes.
Bill Mullen,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
All
All
right.
right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a great night.
You too. Where are we now, Julie? We're where are we
We've
here?
got, now we've got, can you see the agenda? So
Okay.
we should be on Dexter.
All righty, that's right, we continued the other one, I forgot about that. So next item is Adam True Home Designs, 14 Dexter Lane, notice of intent.
And I believe that Mary Rimmer is here, so I just promoted her to panelist. Hopefully that works in a sec. Yeah. And if there's anyone else here to represent the site, to represent the project, I see Adam as a guest. I'm wondering if that's Adam True. If
That's-
so, is that Adam True?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, I'll promote him to panelist as well. Okay, thanks, Mary. And here's the notice of intent, and I do have your site plan as well. So feel free to walk me through it, or if you prefer to share your screen, either way.
You can pull it up. That would be great. For the record, it's Mary Rimmer Environmental Consulting, Adam True, who's an applicant from True Homes and Design. This project is a combined lot of 14 Dexter Lane and 203 High Street. So there's an A&R that has been submitted to the planning board for approval. And essentially, yes, that's 203 High Street right there, and 14 Dexter right there. And the idea would be to take the southern portion of the 203 High Street lot, combine it with the 14 Dexter Lane lot. And we expect that to be approved at the next planning board meeting. So this has been filed as 14 Dexter Lane just for consistency, because that's how the order will be issued when it's issued. So I just wanted to clarify that for you. So the new lot will be about 2 acres in size. And if you want to pull up the site plan, Julia,
Okay,
oh,
sure.
this is some photos. That's helpful. We're not in the
Oh,
flood.
here. Yeah.
The site is relatively sparsely, wooded. More wooded at the far, I guess that's the west end, or north end that you're looking at. So you're looking towards the north there. Let's see, towards Johnson Street and then north towards High Street. You get the, general idea that it's sort of mostly a cleared meadow. But there are certainly trees along the perimeter. And we can take a look at the site plan. There's a finger of wetland. Well, let me just say first that the site generally slopes from High Street towards the south, and it drains towards the middle school. So there's a trail from this property right to the fields at the middle school. There's a finger of wetland. It's a mostly marsh vegetation. There's purple loosestrife and some sedges and rushes, mostly in that wetland. It was delineated by Mark West last spring and confirmed by me. And so we're showing off the edge of that wetland a 25-foot offset with a split rail fence around it. Exactly. And you can see from Dexter Lane, although it's outside of the buffer zone, the existing house on 14 Dexter is proposed to be raised and eliminated, and the new driveway, bituminous drive, coming into the site to service a 2-family home. And we've worked with Julia in this design to try to minimize the extent of buffer zone impact, but it's really not possible to develop this lot without some buffer zone impact, but we're able to stay with underneath below the 20%. We've got 17.7% of buffer zone impact. And we're proposing a significant amount of mitigation in exchange, which includes removal of invasive species in the crosshatched area. That includes multiflora rose, Tartarian honeysuckle, purple loosestrife. There's a assortment of invasives that are proposed to be removed and then replaced with native shrubs. We have a minimum of 70 native shrubs proposed as replacements for what would be removed. And there's a invasive species removal plan included with the notice of intent that describes the methods that would be used. And what else can I tell you? I think that's one of the big things that you're looking for is obviously the total buffer zone disturbance. We've pushed the building as far back as possible. You can see there's some steep slopes leading up to the High Street lot. So there's a limit to how far to the north it can go. We've minimized that as much as possible. There's also landscape plantings that are proposed along the perimeter to provide some buffer from this project to neighbors. And there's no disturbance essentially that's proposed other than just the grading along the edge of the driveway towards the wetland resource there. So we're really trying to maintain that as open space as much as possible, but enhance it with higher wildlife value species. So there's 14,145 square feet of mitigation area that's proposed.
So Mary, in your narrative, you talked about shagbark, hickories, and white oaks on the property.
Mm-hmm.
Are they staying or are they being cut down?
There definitely need to be some trees that need to be cut down. Some of those are up in the the sort of upper northwestern corner, I guess. Yep. in that area where that driveway circles around, there definitely is a grove of trees. And so most of the driveway is through more or less field, but when you get to where it starts curving around to get to the second unit, there's definitely trees in that area.
Okay, and in the planting plan, are you replacing any of those? Because,
That's a good question. Well, we have all the landscape trees in, so we've got mostly arborvitae along the edge there. There's, right along the property line. So a number of our arborvitae. If there are other trees that, you would like to see, we can.
well, the white oaks and shagbark hickories are kind of like the alpha species
They are,
for
yeah.
host plants for
Mhm,
butterflies and stuff. So,
mhm.
and also, and shagbark hickories are also home to bats. They like the bark the way it is. They get in there and hide. And I'm not sure if this applies, but my wife and her brother own some land out in western Massachusetts, and they're having some forestry work done. And they're prevented from doing work at certain times of the year because of the bats and shagbark hickories.
Mhm.
So I don't know if that applies here or not.
I'm not aware of that, but we don't have any hibernacular around here for the species that are being protected, but they do out west in the western
Okay.
part of the state.
Okay, so anyway, I guess my comment is I'd like to see some white oaks and some shagbark hickories planted.
We can
as part of-
certainly add those into the mix. That's a good suggestion.
Also, I drove down Dexter Lane yesterday, just assuming that the house that we were talking about was the last one on the street. And it
Second
isn't.
to last, yeah.
So there's a huge stone wall behind that. Is that parts of that remaining, or is it all coming down?
They will have to go through a portion of that wall,
Yeah.
get access to the site. Yep.
And okay, that property is mostly grass at this point. Is it going to remain grass, or is part of the landscaping going to be changing that? It's an opportunity to do something good for butterflies and bees.
On the Dexter Lane site?
Yeah.
The where the existing house is, I don't have a specific planting plan for that because it's outside of the buffer zone.
Just a thought.
Pardon me?
It's just a thought that it's an opportunity to do
To
something
do
good
some
for
other
the
plantings
environment.
and and
Yeah.
I don't know if Adam who's on, he might have some thoughts about that and what he's intending it to look like when he's through.
So would anybody be interested in a site visit here?
Yeah, I'd like to see some of the tree stuff.
Yeah, I'd like to see the whole layout and see
Yeah.
what the plan is.
If
On the
if we
ground.
go up, would it be possible to stake out the corners of the structure and then maybe the additional driveway, the corners of the driveway?
Yep, I could have Millennium do that. And depending on, I mean, as long as the site walk isn't tomorrow.
Well, yeah, no.
Sure, yeah. I just think that would make it a lot more productive if it's marked out.
Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe the trees that are going to be cut.
Okay.
So maybe we could add this to our Tuesday site visits with Tom. Kill the whole afternoon.
It would certainly do it.
I have to
Yeah.
presume, excuse me, that the driveway that extends up to the northwest part of the site is unavoidable. The parking can't be grouped more towards the south part of the building.
I can try to get that question answered for you.
For you.
Oh, good, Adam.
Sorry, I was having some technical problems with my camera. I finally just got on correctly here. So I'm Adam True, the applicant for 14 Dexter and 203 High. So I wanted to address a couple of the questions that you'd asked. I guess we are going to do a planting plan in the front here. And, you know, I think we could respect to try to replant the shagbarks and the white oak. We are taking limited trees of value, let's say. There are some really nice species and or specimens more of shagbark hickory right around here and right around here that will not be getting cut. So basically we're trying to keep the limit of work to clearing tree wise right past the CC line and to essentially only clear what's needed for the building and the space around it. So we can definitely flag the trees that we plan to cut and get the corners of the building marked out, which I had a meeting with the neighbors, and that was something they wanted to see anyway, so they could get an idea of what it looked like, where it was. I also wanted to say, so the driveway, it does sort of have to go where it is. There's a steep grade coming down through here and a stone wall, and
They can't see your cursor, do you?
Yeah, we can't see your
I'm
cursor.
telling you, is it?
can't see my cursor.
No, Julia's controlling the screen, so.
Yeah, so you can tell me where to put my cursor, but
Oh, okay. Well, I just thought that was mine. So coming in the driveway, where that point where it cuts through there is essentially the best spot to keep us out of the buffer zone, as well as not too far up the hill where we're cutting through a 5-foot grade. So it's kind of the sweet spot between, we'll keep the corner of the stone wall that's there. And this is something that will probably set in a little better on site. So I will flag that out as well so that we can kind of see what we're talking about. And then maybe I'll put a few flag stakes along the driveway to see where that edge is, and we'll get the house corners. And the trees, we'll get those tagged and flagged so you can see that in the site visit. And I think the last major thing I wanted to bring up was that with the neighbors immediately adjacent to lot 1 or Peter Seymour's lot in 203, to the I guess it'd be the north. Let me see here. And to the east, there's 2 neighbors I met with about the screen planting, and we've developed a slightly different screen planting. Similar but slightly different. So we expect to have another plan for you guys to see at the next meeting.
Okay.
How about change drainage on this with all this additional pavement and so forth for the roadway? Has that been considered?
I'm not aware of any requirements for the drainage on the driveway, whereas we're not like a roadway, subdivision roadway. I don't believe that the driveway area is triggering any sort of stormwater or any management of the water.
But in
It will be
general,
managed.
the direction of flow is similar. It's all going, right now it's all
Yeah.
going towards the wetland. It will continue to do that.
Yes, yep, everything
Around
was
the building, but
in the same direction of flow.
And when is this going to the planning board?
it's been submitted, and it's whenever their next meeting is, I don't know if I have that handy here.
Yeah, I don't have the date in front of me here either. But it was submitted and they're on the next agenda.
that needs a special permit for the use. Is that what it is? Multifamily use?
It's the
This
A&R.
A&R, yeah.
A&R. Okay.
There will be also a zoning board meeting for the special use though.
Okay.
That date is not set yet.
There's a June 5th meeting. It doesn't look like that is on there.
So but basically though, so it hasn't gone before planning board or zoning yet, but it needs to for both. It needs an A&R from planning and it needs a special use, special permit from zoning, correct? So that's just something that's pending.
Yep.
Okay. So we have anything else from the commission regarding the plans?
No.
Okay, we do have a couple from the public. Alan Gamble was the first one. If folks can give us your name and your address and
Yep.
do a couple of minutes, please. Thank you. Go
I
ahead,
will.
Alan.
Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Julia, if you could kind of use the cursor to follow up the driveway to the end on the left there, and then move to your left. I'm a little bit down to the left. That is 23 Johnson Street. And if you move towards the stockade fence, right there, you'll see that the property line actually cuts right across, very close to our stockade fence. And along that line, there is a long line of trees which in bloom give us a tremendous shade, which is, one of the reasons we bought the house, and a kind of a green screen, if you will. I wanted to make sure that none of those trees along the back of our fence would be taken. That's point number one. And point number two is we're talking about replanting these hickories and what have you. In the finger that is surrounded by a proposed stockade fence, there are some beautiful old growth shagbark hickories that are heavily used by the current residents of the meadow. And I'm wondering, would any of those be taken? Anything within that stockade fence line, would any of those be taken?
I'm happy to address that if you'd like.
Thank you.
Sure. Only that we're showing a limit of clearing at the new tree line. So the cross-hatched area you see, the only thing that would be coming out of that are non-native and invasive, like multiflora rose and honeysuckle, and replaced with other shrubs. There's no tree cutting proposed at all along that line. The only tree cutting is inside of the sort of limit of work area.
Okay, and one last question, and this is for Adam, I suppose. Can you tell us tonight that this is the end of the development of this parcel, or are there plans for future development down around the area where your cursor is right now? Are there other structures that we can expect to be looking at in the future?
So yeah, I can answer that. The answer is no. Yeah, there won't be anything else except for the proposed building and dwellings here. Everything else will be, everything we're doing is within this limit of work line, kind of dashed right behind the EC line. And nothing will be ever further developed or added in those other areas.
Those were my two questions. Thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank you, Alan. Next one's Rachel Forrest Hay.
Hello.
Hi.
Hang on. My husband's just got to go. Okay, switched off. I'm Alan's neighbour, also on Johnson Street. I'm a little bit further down the hill, 25. So Alan asked some questions that I was also going to ask about the tree line along that boundary fence. The other question I had was about the runoff towards the south, which actually is not to the middle school, it's into the Fuller Field soccer field. It's the back soccer field just behind the running track. That's right. So that is currently a very kind of waterlogged at times field anyway, and there's soccer played there and flag football and other sports. I'm just wondering if is there a way to measure the current sort of water levels on that area, and then have something to compare it to post development? Because potentially there would be a lot more runoff there if it's a hard surface that's running down into the wetland rather than you know, dirt that's soaking up some of that water from a rainfall event.
Sure. And so there would be some additional rate of runoff from paved surfaces, so it would move faster over the paved surfaces, obviously, but the total volume of runoff wouldn't be different than what it is now. It's all going in the same direction. It will continue to go that way. And so the water level, excuse me, smoke going off here.
Her phone just happened, just rang.
My smoke detectors were going off. Hopefully someone's here to take care of that. So we're not required to do any specific stormwater management for the two-family home, but because generally the hydrologic changes are relatively minor for that size development.
Okay. Oh, the other thing, when you go for your site visit as well, the whole site used to be wooded, and the owner of High Street, you'll see all of the logs in a pile, took down about 50 trees during COVID, and to clear the site before all of this was going on. So it did actually used to be much more heavily wooded back there than is currently reflected at the moment on the site. This is an FYI.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next one, Adam Cooperman.
Good evening. Are you able to hear me?
Yes. What's your address, Adam?
Adam Cooperman, 19 Johnson Street.
Okay.
So I'm right kind of at the corner there at the top of, yep, right there. So yeah, I think I share in some of the questions and concerns that have been asked by the commission this evening. Just to reiterate a couple of them. One was parking being grouped closer together towards the middle of the site. This was something I did meet with Adam True, as he mentioned, and this was something I shared with him as well. Overall, the drainage, there is a pretty big slope, and so when you do make your site visit, you'll see how the water is moving very quickly all into the location of this development site. It's very soggy and marshy all year round. And the question of how the new development will impact that, I do question that as well. The staking of the corners, and one other request that we had made was identifying the height and the final elevation of the 35-foot tall structure. So we would be able to see that in relationship as well. So I don't know if that's something that would interest the commission at all.
No, that's not in our purview. That's probably more of a zoning or planning board thing.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. And then Mr. Moore's point of just really taking the opportunity to do something, you know, as he put it, good for the butterflies and the bees. I think with a development like this, there does inherently lie an opportunity to not just meet the minimum thresholds, but to really focus on the landscaping and green screens for the future residents, for the existing neighbors, for the wildlife that will be displaced and or, you know, hopefully stick around during construction to, you know, leave this site better than it is today. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next is Mike DeRico.
Hi, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Yeah, so Mike DeRico, 16 Dexter Lane. I just had a question. If you could clarify this picket fence or split rail fence you're talking about, what exactly is that for? Yeah,
Sure, so that is the 25-foot offset from the wetland boundary, and that's something that the commission typically requires to prevent intrusion into the area in closest proximity to the wetland. So the dark, the solid line with the numbers next to it represent the wetland boundary.
okay.
And that's a 25-foot offset for a split rail fence to just act as a visual buffer to prevent, intrusion into that area.
Okay, so it's not a walkway from the existing Fuller Field that,
No, there's
People
no walkway or anything like that.
no, okay.
Nope.
And then the other question I had is, you mentioned the runoff, because obviously we're at the bottom of the hill here.
Yep.
You said how it would run off into, the wetlands, but it's got to go through my property first. So I just want to make sure that, is there any consideration taking, that into account?
I'm sorry, where is your property?
16 at
16.
the bottom of the street. There you go.
Right,
there.
right. So right now the runoff primarily goes into the wetland. It goes
What?
north to south.
No, it doesn't.
There may be some areas that are flatter that, that might accumulate some water before it flows into the wetland, but that's the general direction of flow is towards a ditch or an intermittent stream. That's not shown on this plan, but it's off-site towards the Fuller Field.
Come here after a rainstorm. You'll see the river out in front of my house.
Okay.
So then the only other question is, as far as the plantings, the arborvitaes are nice, but any plan on putting some between our property and where this new road is going to be now to give us some privacy? That would probably be a question for Adam.
Right. There isn't anything behind your lot proposed at all?
No, I'm talking about on the side, right there where she's got
Oh,
her.
on the side. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can talk about that. Yeah.
All right, great.
Yeah, so to address your question, Mike, probably at the next time there's a meeting, you'll see a little more planting plan that's going to be going along here. And I think this is kind of the area where we would want to plant some of those deciduous species they were talking about, shagbark, white oak, maybe less of an evergreen screen and more of a green planting area to develop. And because we don't want to do anything directly behind your house is
right
in wetland buffer.
Yep.
And so we want to kind of stick with the screening on Dexter Lane's property, 14.
Okay.
And Julia, could you just highlight for everyone just where the 100-foot buffer zone is on this plan, right? Yes, exactly.
Right here.
Yeah.
So this is the 25-foot where the split rail fence is proposed, and then you can see this is the 50-foot that goes just outside there, and this dashed line farthest out is the 100-foot buffer that runs essentially through the proposed new structure in the driveway and around back like this.
Right. So we didn't provide a lot of detail on the existing Dexter Lane lot just because it's outside of the Conservation Commission's jurisdiction. But we can certainly add that to the plan. It's not a problem.
Mary,
Thank you.
quick for Mary and Adam, just because I think that I've heard a lot of concern about stormwater because this is a steep slope coming down all the way from High Street. So there's a lot of water that ends up down here and it is wet on Fuller Field is city property. It's very wet there already. I know it doesn't require the stormwater management report, but given that you're already going to be doing work within the buffer zone to get rid of invasives, et cetera, is there an opportunity to put in some sort of like a rain garden just to capture some water coming off of the driveway areas, et cetera?
Sure. Yeah, we can talk to Millennium about that. Either a rain garden or an infiltration trench along the downslope side of the driveway.
Yeah.
And then even a culvert, to direct it to the wetland itself, so it's not spreading out towards.
Yeah, and just to
the
try to get
neighboring-
as much of it to infiltrate before it hits there as possible, I think would be really go a long way in this on this site.
Yep, that seems doable.
Also on the drainage issue, I mean, the driveway going across 14 Dexter. I assume that as the existing conditions, that stone wall or stops any runoff from this lot going on to Dexter, on the 14 Dexter. But now that there's a driveway there, there's going to be water flowing down that could flow downhill onto 16.
Yeah, we'll have the Millennium look at that. It's fairly flat, so you can see that,
Yeah.
you know, the proposed contours are
Right.
pretty flat along that edge. So the idea would be to, you know, crown the driveway so it would drain to the west and not down towards Dexter.
Okay.
Perfect.
David? David Vine, do you have a question?
No.
Oh,
Did my hand
okay,
go up?
your hand is up.
Oh, that, I don't know how it got up.
I have a
All right.
question again. I didn't get it answered. Why is
And
it
who's-
necessary for that driveway to be quite that long? Can't you get access to I suppose there's two different levels at least for this two-family dwelling, but why couldn't that driveway be shortened on the property?
Yeah, I mean, we're working on a couple of different constraints, one of which is the amount of buffer zone impacts that we're allowed to have. The other is, you know, existing topography and what the slope is. And the other is, you know, just the turning radius is needed to get access to garages and things like that. So, you know, we've worked on a couple different alternative designs for this plan, and this was the least impactful one that we could come up with. That you know, that originally there were 2 single-family homes that were proposed. Was it 2? Yeah, I think it was. And it just, by combining them, we can reduce the impacts quite a bit and stay further outside of the buffer zone. So that's the math that we have to work with. There's just an opportunity to put the houses closer to Dexter Lane without significantly more impacts to the wetland buffer zone.
Well, that parking couldn't be grouped on the south side of the building, where you've got that.
It just
Yeah,
doesn't
right
work
there.
for a 2-family home to do
Yep.
that, to have all the parking on one side of the building. So that's not what is currently proposed, I guess, is the answer to that.
Right. You all set, Bill?
Yeah, I guess without a profile view, this whole thing, it's hard to still picture why it's necessary to extend the driveway that long.
Well, maybe we'll get some answers during the site visit.
So I just have,
Sounds good.
Oh, go ahead, Steve.
so one of my sons lives in Switzerland. And in there, when they're proposing a new building, they have to put up poles on the property that indicate how tall the house is going to be. And they have to leave them up for a year. Now, I'm not proposing that here, but you know, one of the abutters wanted to see how tall the house was going to be. And, you know, if you could put up a 35-foot pole, that might help answer the question. Doesn't have to stay for a year.
Well, that's up to you guys, I think, but all right. Next. Mike, that's your questions answered, Mike? There we go.
I'm sorry, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Answered all my questions. Thank you, guys.
Okay. All right, next person is iPhone ending in 2552.
Yes,
Yeah,
hello. My name is Gail.
gotcha. Okay, go ahead.
My name is Gail Cray. I'm at 205 High Street. I am in the area, I'm the most affected probably, or my property is, by this building. I'm wondering why it couldn't be switched, turned around 90 degrees, facing Dexter Lane, as opposed to clear cutting all of the amazing full-grown black walnut grove that they're going to be taking down to build this thing, plus that monstrous driveway. I don't understand it. That whole area is a refuge for deer, fox, and so many birds. And once again, humans come in and destroy it. I just don't understand the placement of this building. I don't understand why it has to be at the bottom of my yard, when indeed it's the Seymours that are benefiting from this. And I think it's much too much driveway. I don't understand why this is being allowed, frankly. It's very invasive, and I think it's going to be very detrimental to a lot of people.
Yeah, some of those things we really can't answer here. We're
Why not? Why can't you answer?
well, some of the items as to where it's aimed and everything, and any of the aesthetic values, for the most part, it would be a planning board and.
But surely you can have some say over the amount of driveway that they're putting in there, affecting the wetlands. And they're taking down an enormous grove of 50-foot black walnut. I mean, that certainly affects, that's certainly.
We're gonna have a site visit to look
Yeah.
at the site in person.
I've also asked the site polls, and I've also asked Mr. True, and I gave him a can of turf paint and said, would you please mark the trees that are going to be taken down? There's also an issue with the sound abatement. There is I've been here for 25 years. There is so much sound from the industrial area that comes up that hill now that was not there 20 years ago. Those trees buffer it. Those trees are going to be gone, and it's going to be very loud. I don't expect no development down there, but I think clear cutting the trees and the placement of that building is just wrong on so many levels. And I think a lot of that really does have to do with your group.
Okay, well, we're gonna know more after the first site visit. We'll
When will that be?
We have not settled on a date yet, but we would prefer to have it at this point. Were we talking the 13th? Oh, no, 14th?
The 14th.
14th.
Of this month, 14th of this month. I would be happy to host you on my property so you can see what I'm going to be looking at, if you're interested.
Well, I'm sure we can get that perspective too when we're down there.
And will people be notified when you're coming?
Generally, correct me if I'm wrong, Julie, but a lot of site visits are not totally open to the public when they're on private property.
They're not posted public meetings when we discuss them at the public hearing and set a date.
So even the abutters are not aware of when you're coming to
well,
site visit?
the abutters are made aware of the public hearing, and at the public hearing, the commission determines when there's going to be a site visit. So everyone can be aware, and it'll be in the public minutes and it will be in the public record. But no, we don't post every site visit.
Well, I think that would be a very good idea if you told the abutters when you were coming. I also asked Mr. True to stake out where the building is going to be. I gave him a can of turf paint and said, would you mark the trees that are coming down? I want a site poll to see how high it's going to be from my viewpoint. And I don't understand why you would come here and not let the abutters know when you're coming.
So I think that the Conservation Commission is going to set a site visit date at this meeting, and they have not done so yet. So that will happen. The site visit is not a public meeting, so it's up to the applicant to decide whether or not they would allow the public to come onto the site visit. And
the applicant meaning Mr. True?
Mr. True has the opportunity to decide whether or not abutters or neighbors are welcome on the site visit or not. I don't
Well,
know if he has made a decision on that at this point or not, but
Well,
that
that seems a bit
that's
backward.
just the rule.
me.
And the Conservation Commission has their sole purpose right now is in determining whether or not there is an impact that to wetlands that is beyond what is acceptable in their regulations and the Wetlands Protection Act. And I think if you look at the plan, you can see that about 2/3 of this site is remaining completely undeveloped and in its natural state. So it's only the area
I
of the
can tell
driveway
you
and
this,
the
an
house.
enormous grove of 50-foot black
Right.
walnut are being taken down, and they're going to be replaced with pussy willow and a high bush blueberry. If that's not your wheelhouse, I don't know what is.
We're not there yet, ma'am, and we need to look at the site. And there may or may not be changes being made at planning and or zoning. This is the first meeting we've had on this, so we are in the infant stages of this whole project, and we will, I'm sure, have a lot more information at our next meeting.
Well, and I hope if Mr. True follows through with this and all the trees are being demolished, I hope that the sound abatement people, I hope someone comes up with some sort of sound abatement idea from the industrial zone, because the sounds from that area coming up this hill are louder and louder every year.
Okay, I appreciate that. And we'll be on the most likely be on the agenda for our next meeting
On the 14th.
on the 21st.
We can plan on the 14th for your visit.
As far as I know right now, we haven't said it yet, but
All right. Well, thank you for your time.
all right, thank you. Next person I see is Carol.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Carol. I'm Alan's wife. I'm at 23 Johnson Street. I'm sitting here and I'm listening to my neighbors, and I appreciate the conservation. Thank you for all of you for what you do. Thank you to Adam for his diligence in scaling back this project. He's a real professional and we respect him. Unfortunately, our neighbors, the Seymours, bought this land with this in mind. We've enjoyed this green space for many years. We've been here since 2005. The wildlife, the trees, the birds and the bees, the privacy, the space, the breathing space, to look out the back and feel the green, just breathe it in. It's beautiful. It's changing, and we have no choice. This proposed two-family dwelling is the best that we've seen. I want you to be aware that we first proposed a 16-family development, which was horrendous. And there was a lot of emotions around that, especially for our neighbors on Dexter Lane, thinking about all the cars, all the traffic, the danger to children walking up from the schools and the soccer fields. It's very emotional. But we are good neighbors and we care. And we know that, this is something that looks like it's going to happen. And we want to be the best neighbors we can be. We really appreciate you coming out for a site visit. That's really important to us. And we want to cooperate and be good neighbors. But I want you to know what's at stake here is that this is a huge change. We look around Newburyport, we look at all the other places where developments can be. And why here? Well, it's not our choice, it's not our land. But it's our land in terms of it's our Newburyport. And, we like this, we live, we love how this place is for us. And we're sorry that this is going to happen, but we want to, again, thank you for your time and attention to our concerns. And that's all I guess I have to say. The group of neighbors here are a community, and we care about this a lot. And we just want to be, I appreciate everything Gail had to say. I agree with everything she had to say. And we care about each other and we care about this community in Newburyport, and we will do the best we can to cooperate and to be good neighbors. And I guess I want to end here. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Bill. And next one is Michael Quill.
Good.
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, Mike, Quill, 201 High Street. So didn't quite get an answer. Gail's question did not get answered. Why isn't this structure going behind the Seymour's house? Why is it spreading out to affect more than necessary?
I don't have an answer other than the zoning is not, you can't fit a house on that size lot, the width of that lot there. So, Adam, if you have anything you want to add, I can, at the next meeting, we can bring the project engineer who has a lot better understanding than I do of all the building constraints for this particular lot. I'm the wetland scientist, so I can tell you about the wetland regulations and what the wetland consists of. But all the decisions that go into the design of this lot were made with all the city zoning requirements in mind.
Yeah, I think that pretty much echoes it, Mary. We built this design to the city's standards, essentially, in all aspects. To Byron's.
Okay. Okay. Next question is, how you say that there will be no more development of this property after this two families put in, but I quite frankly don't see how anyone's making enough money for this to be worth it. How are we assured that there won't be some kind of, surprise? We're actually going to try to push through another two family on this property down the road. Is there an ironclad legally binding
the city wetland
aspect to
regulations
this?
won't allow it. They don't, there's not another place to put a house on this parcel.
Yeah, Mary's correct. Right now, the amount of development on the site is pretty much maxed out in terms of what's allowable under the local Wetlands Protection Ordinance. And so there really wouldn't be possibility for them to disturb any additional area of the lot. They've squeezed this into the smallest area that they can and the furthest away from the wetland that they can get it. And there's just really no room for anything else.
Yeah. Okay. And lastly, what are the implications of for Dexter Lane in terms of anything new having to go on Dexter Lane, sidewalks? Where are all these trucks and crews going to be parking? Is Dexter Lane going to become totally congested for 2 years, a year, whatever it takes to do the project?
There shouldn't need to be any parking on Dexter Lane. Once the house is raised, then they'll have access on the new driveway. So there won't need to be parking or construction vehicles on Dexter Lane. Is that correct, Adam?
Yeah, that's correct. All parking for construction will be on the site.
So there's not going to be any alterations to Dexter Lane besides knocking down the house and building a driveway?
Knocking down the house and building a new driveway, and there will be some form of landscape planting and potentially entryway that exists on 14 Dexter.
There are already utilities that service the house, which will be maintained, so they won't have to dig up Dexter Lane for utilities. They can just be extended.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So do Mike and the other folks have any other questions? All right, I'm not seeing anything, so.
I'm good, thank
Um,
you.
Great, thank you. All right. So shall we, let's continue here. Do we want to do our site visit on the 14th?
Yeah, after we do our Plum Island stuff, so
So what, like 2:30 or something?
2:30, 3 o'clock.
Can you guys do that?
Yeah, if you could make it closer to 2:30, that would be best for me.
I'm sure we can make it closer to 2:30.
Yeah, that works for me, and I just want to say thank you and appreciate your time.
Okay. Actually, we have one H Coella has their hand up. See that, Julie? There we go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, and your
Hi.
name and address?
Hi, I'm Heather Colella. I live at 25B Johnson Street. So at the bottom of the lot on the, what would be the upper left. So right where it says stop, keep going down the bottom, closer to Fuller Field. Keep going down there. Well, there now you're in off the lot, but
Somewhere in that area.
yeah, right in there. So a couple of things. I appreciate the work that you've all done to show where the boundary lines of the wetland are today. As neighbors, we all know that those have changed a little bit when all the trees in the center of the lot were cut down, particularly in my lot because I'm at the bottom of the hill. I've got a lot more water, to be frank. And I understand that you're working with the information that you have in front of you. I just would appreciate you reviewing how you're going to manage that water when folks are saying things like, oh, it's just going to flow downhill and more of it's going to flow downhill and we're going to channel it with different kinds of rain things to go downhill. You're basically saying you're going to dump it in my yard because I am in the edge of that boundary. And so I guess I would just really appreciate if, as you look at your options, that you maintain the water on the current lot, not just pushing it down the hill.
Yeah, I think that's why we were discussing things like rain gardens and other things, because they're essentially sinks for the water to make its way back into the ground.
Okay, and I truthfully I don't know what a rain garden is, so again I would really appreciate if as we move forward with this process that the intention is to maintain the additional runoff on the current lot, not to expect some other aspect of the wetland, and that's in quotes, to absorb it, because I'm currently not absorbing it. I was underwater this spring, which was unusual. We've been here since 2002, so all right, a long time. So unusual to have standing water in my backyard.
We also have had an awful lot of rainfall this spring.
Yeah, that's been another issue with this year too. So.
Well, like I said, with the trees getting cut down, it definitely changed the dynamic of the lot. And I recognize that you're working with what you have right now, but it's not the same as it was 20 years ago in terms of its ability to absorb the water that's coming down that hillside. The trees really did soak up quite a bit. So I just would ask for you to consider that aspect, kind of knowing that over the last year or so, there's quite a bit of change in the way that that land handled the water. I get that you're working with what you've got. I did have a second question though.
Okay.
on the Dexter Lane lot, and I recognize this is the Conservation Commission, but your area of concern is primarily within that 100-foot boundary. Is that
Correct.
accurate?
That's our regulatory,
So in other words, and this is just to say it and not really know if that's what's going to happen. If Adam True decided to move that driveway within 3 feet of the lot line on either side, it doesn't really affect the wetlands, and it is a building lot right now today. So if he chose to do that, there is the potential for additional building that would not impact wetlands, so wouldn't be part of your purview. Is that accurate?
I'm not actually following. Do you mean through the 14 Dexter Lane site? If he
Yep.
shifts the
Yep.
in order to put a house back on 14 Dexter, is that what
Yep.
you're saying?
Yep.
I don't know. I think that's a question for zoning for the zoning administrator at City Hall, or maybe Adam or Mary can speak to that, because I think there are setback issues and lots.
Yeah, but they
Yeah,
come to.
I can speak to that
Okay.
if it's gonna, the answer is, the short answer is no, there'll be no further development anywhere else in the lot. We're essentially combining all the bold lines that you see are gonna become one lot. And there'll be one proposed 2-family dwelling on that lot. And that is it's allowable by right, with the amount of square footage in the lot and frontage and so forth. So no further development.
right, because right now we're at, what was it, 17.7 or 17 point something % coverage on the combined lot, and which means they only have 3% more that they could put anywhere on there.
In the buffer zone. That's the buffer zone
In the
calculation.
buffer zone.
Yeah, but more importantly, what Adam was saying is that there wouldn't be frontage. The frontage for these 2 dwellings is coming from Dexter Lane. There's not enough room on that lot to provide a second frontage for another lot on that 14 Dexter Lane.
Okay, thanks. I didn't know all the rules, so I appreciate you explaining that.
Be one lot. Yep.
It would be all one lot, and some version, even if it gets tweaked with the driveways or whatnot, it would be that 1-2-family.
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thanks.
All right, thank you. All right, so we have we've got our site visit for at least 2:30 on the 14th. And do you guys want a continuance to the next meeting or to the first meeting in June?
I think the next meeting, please.
Okay. So to the 21st of May.
Yes.
A motion to continue this?
I got one more comment, I guess.
Oh, okay.
Given the abutters' concerns and the increased rainfall we're getting, I think you need to think about stormwater management and making sure that it doesn't go on, increase any going on to the abutters'
We'll
land.
look at that. We'll look at that.
Okay.
I'll
make a motion to continue to the 21st.
Second it.
All right, roll call. Steve Moore,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
Dan Warshall,
Yes.
Bill Mullins,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
Thank you.
All righty. All right,
See you
thank
on the
you.
14th.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All right, roll call.
I
Steve
don't
Moore.
think you want to close the hearing. You just want to continue it, right?
No, we already didn't we continue?
Yeah.
Continued, but we're closing
we just
the public
continued already,
hearing
right.
section.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, this is the
Thank
public
you.
hearing. Yeah, no,
Okay,
we're
got
not, we're not closing yours, no.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Where was I here? We'll go again. Steve Moore,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
Dan Warshall,
Yes.
Bill Mullen.
Yes.
I vote yes. All right, have we anything else? this evening?
Unfortunately, yes, we do have
Oh.
one more thing this evening. It's a new enforcement issue. Let me pull up, I don't know if some of you may have been the ones that, I know, David, you sent me something about this violation on Grant Street on the dunes out on Plum Island. A bunch of people saw something posted on Nextdoor where there were trucks and sort of like a backhoe pushing sand through the dune out on Plum Island, and turned out that it was at the end of Grant Street. And so I'm just gonna pull up these photos. You guys see this photo right now?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so this is the house at the very end of Grant Street, and let me see if I can also get you a like an aerial. Let's see. All right, so Grant Street, so Reservation Terrace is right here. All like 60, I guess it's, let's see, it'd be 61st Street and then 69th and then 75th. So all that erosion is like further down this way. This is on the ocean side of the jetty. So the jetty is just up here off the page past where it says City of Newburyport. And so this ocean side is where everything is nice and safe and happy. Here's 57th Street. But in any case, this end house on Grant Street has this sort of outdoor area here that sort of, and a pathway historically that leads out onto the dunes. This is from 2014, this particular aerial photo. And then we have 2023. You can see that that pathway is much sort of wider and more open. And then what we saw happening, I believe it was just on this past Sunday, was, okay, here's the back of that house at the end of Grant Street, and they have this rollout walkway, which is perfectly, you know, permittable and lovely. And then it goes to, it leads past their little swing here, and then out over the crest of the dune onto the beach. And you might be able to see, these pictures were just taken, I just took these yesterday. You can see how it looks like this sand right here has been pushed, as it has. So essentially what I think has happened is they went from a situation where there was like a little pathway out across the vegetated area of dune out to the beach, to just a much wider open sort of swath of sand leading out to the beach. It's hard to say when this was first done. I think what's happening now is that they're just maintaining it every spring, because as we know, there's sand piling up against the South Jetty. And I think this is an area where there's a lot of accretion of sand and accumulation of sand, and probably during storms, it probably blows onto their deck. And so then in the spring, I think what's happening is that they're getting some equipment, and they're just pushing the sand out from this sort of low area where their house is, pushing it back out to the beach, rolling out their walkway, etc. There's a lot of alarm bells going off from people who saw this happening. I think we just need to discuss whether or not we feel like it's a violation that needs to be addressed, or whether you feel comfortable with them having this access way through, and it is their property, through the dune to the beach.
Oh. They're altering the dune though, right?
Yeah,
It's an alteration of the form, altering the form of the dune. That said, we do put special conditions in project applications for single family homes where when sand accumulates on your driveway or on your deck or whatever, you're allowed to remove it by hand and place it back on the adjacent dune. And that is something that homeowners are allowed to do. Typically, they don't need a backhoe to do that. But it is, and I don't know that this is within that sort of scale, or if this crosses a threshold. I wasn't out there to see it, but there's video.
It would seem to me that their mat could just go over the new sand. It doesn't have to be dug out and, you know, flattened and whatever.
Yep.
I think they've gone beyond what we might permit.
I would agree. I would like to have them in to have a discussion about what they do.
Okay, so I drafted this notice of violation. Because expecting that that's sort of probably the direction that we might want to go. Just saying that there was an alteration of the form of the coastal dune and barrier beach. And then we can have them come in and talk about how to handle it. Maybe it's that they really just need to get rid of sand that's piled up on their deck. And that was the easiest way that they were going about doing it. Maybe we just need to ask them to revise their methodology and do it in a kinder, gentler way that doesn't harm dune vegetation
And let them know people are watching, apparently.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if they don't already know that, given the number of.
Well, it also seems to me, you know, what they're doing seems to be to their own detriment. I mean, leveling, you know, you can kind of see where the dune is building on either side. That's providing protection for the houses behind those dunes when you're plowing that dune over to keep it flat. Maybe the idea is that the sand is being pushed up front. It'll be, you know, it doesn't seem like it's providing any type of protection. I think it's going to cause them some problems that they should probably try and avoid.
There's that part too.
Right, because if the Corps of Engineers goes through and puts, you know, that weir in the jetty, there's going to be erosion on this side of the.
Yeah,
of the jetty.
that the area is going to change.
Right. So what they're doing is not in their best interest, as Dan pointed out.
On top of not having a permit to be changing the face of the dune, but.
Right.
Agreed, you can really see, Dan's right. You can see how you've got an elevated dune, vegetated dune on either side. So.
Yeah, I wonder if sand fencing or some type of other methods might be helpful where they don't have as big a problem.
Assuming that's the issue. That's why I like to have them in here to tell us why they're doing that.
Send this out tomorrow.
Okay.
So while we're talking about violations, any progress in that other one, Julia?
Progress. I'm working on it. I'm working on it.
Okay.
I'll let you know at the next meeting.
Okay. Do we have any more business this evening?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
I'll second that. Oh, dang. All right. Roll call. Steve Moore.
Yes.
David Vine.
Yes.
Dan Warshaw.
Yes.
Bill Mullen.
Yes.
And I say yes. Good evening, folks.
All right.
See you all
Good
next
night.
week.
Yeah.
Site visits. I'll send out an invite.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.